Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Daniel Canepa. This is In Honor of the Truth. Today we're going to be talking on the topic of deliverance. It's going to be a teaching number 9 on this topic, and it's going to be very closely related to teaching number 7, which we talked about the diverse kinds of manifestations when performing deliverance. And we're talking about demonic manifestations within the patient, within the person in need. And today we're talking about the dialogue, or having a dialogue with the adversary, with the enemy. It's going to be a very controversial topic, and it's delicate, sensitive topic. So if you don't have any experience in deliverance, just make sure you have your Bible. Just be careful the way that you receive, how your heart is. Make sure your heart is right with God when you're hearing this, so that you don't go the wrong direction. So let us go ahead and begin. While ministering deliverance, when should we talk with the demon that is within the patient? And how should we talk to them? Well, right off the bat, most ministers will say never. Never. You should never talk to demons. And if that is your answer, then this teaching is not for you. It's not your ministry, or it's not your calling, or simply you are not ready, or maybe you're just immature. But it's not for you. So, did Jesus forbid to speak with demons like some of these ministers are saying? And the answer is no. And we're going to prove that. We've shown this before, but very quickly I want to just start with this just to lay it out as a foundation. And we can see that in Mark chapter 3, verse 11. It says, "And the unclean spirits, whenever they saw him, fell down before him and cried out, saying, 'You are the Son of God.' But he sternly warned them that they should not make him known." So it seems that some people are thinking, well, he shut them up. Yes, he did. He warned them and told them to be quiet, but he didn't teach that, or he didn't prohibit to speak with them. Let's go to a second testimony in Luke chapter 4, verse 41. It says, "And demons also came out of many, crying out and saying, 'You are the Christ, the Son of God.' And he, rebuking them, did not allow them to speak." So here people say, look, there it is. He didn't allow them to speak, so we are also not allowed to speak with them. And for they knew that he was the Christ. So the reason why he didn't allow them to speak is not because he's forbidding to speak with them in general. Is because they knew who he was, and it wasn't that time for people to know yet. Last example is in Luke chapter 9, verse 20. When he's talking no longer to demons, he's talking to his disciples, but he's talking about the same thing, so here we can connect it. Verse 20 says, "He said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?' Peter answered and said, 'The Christ of God.' And he strictly warned and commanded them to tell this to no one." So here we see that the reason why he would tell the demons to be quiet, to shut up, and would not let them talk, is because they knew who he was, just like his disciples now knew who he was, and Peter received the revelation of who he was. Same reason he told them not to say it to anybody, to keep it quiet, keep it to themselves, because it wasn't his time yet, he has not been crucified yet. So that's the reason why, not because he said, don't talk to them, you're not allowed to, you shouldn't. Now, this teaching, I just want to make a quick parenthesis. We're not teaching that you're supposed to. That's not the teaching. So just be careful. We're not saying, today we're teaching how to speak to them just because we want to, or that's, no. There's a purpose for this. There's a time for it, and there's a need for it. Why? Because sometimes I've heard testimony, and also in my case, from my personal experience, when you deal with a demon that manifests, sometimes you don't know what to do when they don't come out. They start talking, and you just don't know what to do. And sometimes you also want to rebuke them and say or talk to them, ask them what they're doing there, but you don't know at what point is the demon or is the person you're talking to. So this teaching is exactly for that scenario, to know when to talk to the demon, so you're not talking to the person, you're bypassing the person, talking to the demon. And also how, and is it even needed? Do we need to talk to them? So that's why we're doing this teaching. Now, the demons spoke to Jesus and even had a conversation with him. Let's go back to Mark. Chapter 1, verse 23 says, "Now there was a man in their synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, 'Let us alone.' So he said to the Lord, 'Leave us alone. What have we?'" And then he followed up with a question. "What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us?" He asked. "I know who you are." And then he started declaring and revealing who he was, which God didn't want that to happen yet. "You are the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be quiet and come out of him." So there was an exchange of words. It wasn't a long conversation, but there was still an exchange. There was a question being asked. And the second example, let's go to Mark chapter 5 with the boy that had the demon of the unclean spirit that caused epilepsy. 5 verse 6, "When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshiped him." So there was a total or a manifestation that he ran to him and worshiped him. "And he cried out with a loud voice and said, 'What have I,'" same thing, "'what have I to do with you, Jesus?' So he asked him, 'What have I to do with you, Son of the Most High God?'" So he started again revealing who he was, which Jesus didn't want him to do. "I implore you by God that you do not torment me." "Don't torment me," he said. So he was begging him, "Don't torment me." Why was he begging him? "For he said to him, 'Come out of the man, unclean spirit.'" And the way this is translated is supposed to be the correct translation, and the original is because he was telling him to come out. So the reason the demon was saying, "Don't torment me," it wasn't just because Jesus was there, even though, yes, his presence, the presence of God torments the demons, his holiness, his powerful presence torments them. But in this case, because he was telling him, so he was already telling him to come out. "Don't torment me," because when you tell a demon to come out, they get tormented. They start catching on fire within in the spirit, and they start getting tormented to come out. So that's why he said that. And verse 9 says, "Then he asked him, 'What is your name?' So then Jesus continued the conversation. Instead of just rebuking, he said, "Okay, what is your name? What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And then the conversation continued, and he also begged him earnestly that he should not send him out of that country. Like, "Don't send me out, leave me here, send me to those swine, that we may enter them." 13 says, "And at once Jesus gave him permission." So it's like, go. He gave him permission. So there was exchange of words. There was a conversation. He asked him what his name was. "Who are you? What's your name?" And this teaches us that, yes, there was a conversation. Now, did Jesus make it a teaching to do it exactly like this? Not necessarily, but we learn from this that it is possible, and it is an example of what Jesus did that we can also do if needed. If needed. That's what the teaching is about, is if needed, okay? Just in case. Now, at what point exactly is it possible to have a dialogue with a demon? Okay, now we're not talking about is it necessary. We're going to explain that later. Now, again, so you don't get confused or get triggered immediately. If you're already triggered, just be patient. Wait till the end before you get offended, okay? At what point exactly is it possible to have a dialogue with an unclean spirit? That's what we're going to talk about right now. At what point is it possible? And to do that, we have to explain again the 4 kinds of manifestations, which we taught in the teaching number 7 of Deliverance. So I'm just going to quickly summarize. Number 1 of kinds of manifestation is internal. Internal is when the patient feels the demon inside moving around, being tormented, and the patient feels it. You, as a person praying, as a minister praying, you don't know that. You don't know unless you have the gift of discernment, and you can feel what they feel. That's a different story. But only they feel it inside. They feel disturbance inside, a demon manifesting. So it's internal, and the patient, in this case, is completely conscious. Number 2 is bodily manifestation. And what that means, like we explained before, is that the demon partially takes control of the body and begins to manifest, moving the limbs, moving the body of the patient. And in this case, the patient is also conscious, but is a bit disoriented, because his limbs are moving, making maybe hand signals, gestures, things like that, but not really talking. He's just a bit disoriented. Number 3 is verbal manifestation. And verbal is when the demon partially takes control of the mind, just partially, but specifically the mouth, that begins to talk through the person, and can say things to defend itself, to attack, to counterattack, and just say things or even answer questions that you have. In this case, the patient is also conscious, but a bit delirious, kind of going in and out. And then total manifestation is the 4th one. And total, well, that's what it means, total. It's a total manifestation, which means the patient is completely unconscious. Might be going in and out, but it's completely unconscious, and it's when the demon takes over the mind, which takes over the mouth, lips, body, everything. And now the question was, at what point exactly is it possible to have a dialogue with the demon? And after this, we'll explain when is it necessary to do this. So just hold on, okay? Well, during a total manifestation, obviously, yes, it's possible because they're talking, they're completely manifested, they're not coming out, it's just talking. Verbal, also, it's at the surface. It's at the surface level, and it's starting to come out, it's starting to manifest, and it's talking, so obviously you can have a dialogue there. Bodily is when it's a question mark. Sometimes. It's coming to the surface, but it needs a tug. It needs you to pull, and then he can come up and become a verbal manifestation. But it's there kind of like at that point. So sometimes. And internal, no, never. Why not internal? Because if you have a dialogue or try to have a dialogue with a demon, when besides a total verbal or even maybe a bodily manifestation, it becomes manipulation. So during a deliverance, when it's an internal manifestation, the situation could easily turn into manipulation through the power of suggestion. You're suggesting things to the patient, and because they want to kind of go through with the deliverance session, they'll just do what you say. They'll kind of just follow your commands just to get through with what's going on, because they're genuinely seeking help, and they're just following commands. That's it, genuinely, but also in a gullible kind of way. So it's never good, it's never correct to begin talking with the demon when it's an internal manifestation, because there's no manifestation at all. You're just kind of talking to the person. You're talking to the spirit of the person, like the spirit within you, your spirit. And that's not correct, because it's just manipulation. Okay, so when is it possible to have a dialogue with a demon? Total, verbal, they're already there, and bodily, we'll explain why and how to make them come up. The unclean spirit begins to rise up to the surface during deliverance. The more he rises up, the more chance there is to speak with him. Okay, so here we have the figure of this man and also this house, which represents our body also. And during total, we'll start backwards here. So internal is right here, internal. So the demon's not coming out, or it's kind of like inside, manifesting inside, only the patient can tell. So there's no conversation that can be made. Second is bodily, Bodily is right here. It's rising up. So the manifestation is more clear, more evident in the body. It's moving, it's beginning to move the limbs. Then there's verbal. The demon can speak to the person now. It's a verbal manifestation. And last is total. Total takes over the mind, which takes over the body, the words, verbal manifestation, everything, because it's total manifestation. So what I've learned is that in order to speak with the unclean spirit, to get the information out, or because it's not coming out, it's kind of like fishing. It's kind of like fishing, like going fishing. What I have here is a fishing rod that I haven't used in a while. And a fishing rod, it has a rod, it has a fishing line, it has the hook, and it has the bait right here. So the bait, the fish is lured to the bait, and then they get hooked on this hook when you pull. So what I've learned is that demons are very similar. When they're coming up to the surface in a bodily form, or bodily manifestation, it's possible to pull, just like fishing. You pull really quickly and you get them, and then you start bringing them in. You start bringing in this, that fish, and obviously you don't want to let it go, because if you let it go, it goes back down below to a place where it's comfortable and that it's not going to be compromised. And ultimately what you want to do with this demon is obviously get it out, not just sit there and have a conversation. It's get it out. But in order to get it out, you have to reel it in, get as much information you can, or if that's needed, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, and eventually cast it out. It comes out of the river, out of the lake, out of the ocean, just comes out. Okay, but you don't let it go. So once you have it, and how does this happen when it's kind of manifesting there between bodily and verbal, is there's a moment when the demon manifests enough that you can speak to him. And that's why this teaching is necessary, because we don't know when is the right time. Sometimes we think we don't have to, or it's not needed, but I know there's scenarios when it is actually needed. There's scenarios where it is actually needed, and that's what we're going to talk about next. But really quickly, to finish off what I was telling you about the fishing rod, is that there's a moment when the demon's manifesting and you have to take authority. You have to look at the person, at the patient in the eyes, and you have to know that you're not speaking to that person. You're speaking to the demon within the person. And if you have faith and you have the authority that God gave you, because first of all, God gives you authority. It's a gift, authority. He gave you a crown. He made you a king. He gave you the garments of royalty, armor. He gave you the sword. He gives you that authority. It's the authority that comes from God. Next is faith. You have to believe and you have to speak with faith. So you have to use that authority. And then also is holiness. Why did the demons automatically manifest when Jesus walked by? Because he was God in the flesh. So they manifested automatically. So holiness is also very important. We're going to teach about that soon. It's not the topic for today specifically, but specifically the using the authority, that gift that God gave you. And with faith, you have to confront that demon and tell it to come up and speak to him. And in that moment, you have to use all the authority you have. You have to raise your voice, and you have to be sharp. So that sword, you have to be sharp, and you have to hit exactly where you need to hit. It's going to be an instant when it's manifesting. It's right there on the surface, and it's just like you pull on that fishing rod, and you get him, you hook him, the fish, and you got him. And right there, you got him. You have to hold on to him if needed. Now, I also have this house right here, and this house also represents your body. So just to bridge or leave it very clear so you can understand here, the body, the house, the temple, an internal manifestation, the demons inside, you can't even see it. During bodily manifestation, you can kind of see it. When we're explaining with the fishing rod, you see it there, you know it's there, it's manifesting, you're getting ready to pull and get him. So he's kind of like just peeking through the window. He's there manifesting. He's there looking at you. He's there kind of contemplating what's going on. Is this person having a faith? Do they have authority? I know Jesus. I know who Paul is, but who's this guy? You know, they're going to be like that, kind of manifesting because they're like on panic mode. Then verbal manifestation is when they start talking to you. The door is open, but they're inside still. They're kind of inside, but they're talking to you. That's how it is. The door is open. They're kind of almost stepping out, and you can have a conversation, but they're still not coming out. They're still not out. A total manifestation is when they're standing already in front of the door. They're not scared. They took over the mind. There is a total manifestation, and either they're going to go back inside, go back down, or they're going to come out, be cast out. And out means completely out of the whole territory, the whole body, because they're still there. They're not scared. They're talking to you. It's a total manifestation. They can have a conversation with you. So that's how it works. Internal, bodily, they're inside. Verbal, they're already talking to you. And total, they're outside, fronting you, coming against you, or at least defending their territory because they don't want to be cast out. They don't want to lose that body. They're very territorial, have a lot of ego, very arrogant. So they will come and defend. They will come and test your faith and authority to see if you're going to use that authority or not. Now, is it necessary to speak to the demon during deliverance? If it just comes out, then no. If your congregation is made up of babes, people who are just born again, then I would say God will teach you. You'll learn this along the way. But for those of you who are very much young or have not experienced any of these things, then the answer for you would be like those ministers say, that never. Yes, for right now, never for you until you get there, until you have, because you're going to eventually experience it. If God is there with you, if the presence of God is in that congregation, eventually demons will manifest. And eventually, if the Spirit of God is strong, like the man in the synagogue, the demon manifested and started talking, eventually you will get a total manifestation. If you never get any type of manifestation, demons never come out, demons never manifest, then that congregation is unhealthy. The presence of God is not there. Why? Because everybody has demons. Everybody needs deliverance. It's a process of sanctification. As soon as you're born again, as soon as you repent, they don't all come out. We've been teaching this already. And this is the truth. This is what we found out. Okay, if you don't know that already, then I suggest you watch the teaching. Can children of God have demons? We explained that already, that yes, they can. All right, so if you're young in the faith, then just hang on to this teaching. You don't necessarily have to apply it right at this point because there's still things you need to do, but just hang on to it in your heart and just have it there for when the time comes. Okay, so is it necessary to speak to the demon during a deliverance? I'm going to give 10 points why it's necessary, okay? Number one, if the manifestations and deliverances are too frequent in the patient. If they are too frequent, then yes, it's necessary. Because what that means is that the demon that you want to get out, the strong man, is not coming out. So that demon is just fooling with you, or other little demons are coming out, but that one is not coming out. And it's too frequent. The manifestation is disturbing the congregation. It's the same person. So something's wrong. Like this is a stronger demon. This is not normal. The same nature and characteristic, the same attitude of this person is still there. They're not free. Like that's when this will be necessary, because you've tried everything else. And you would need to speak to that demon to get it out once and for all. Number two, to identify him. When you identify the demon, they automatically are exposed and they get weakened because they've been identified. So they lose power, they lose grasp once they are being identified. Number three, to identify the strong man. So you ask the demon, who is your superior? Who is the strong man? Who is on top of you? Who is over you? Who is ruling over you within that body? Who is operating over you? So you just ask them, who is your superior? And then they have to tell you. If you're being led by the Holy Spirit and you're using the authority that God gave you, they're going to answer you. Number four, to identify the rest of the unclean spirits. Number five, to confirm that it has come out. In the Word of God, there is different examples we have of demons coming out. They come out yelling and screaming. They come out convulsing. They come out rolling on the ground. And that's the same manifestations we see also today, just like back then. So one reason it's necessary or needed is to know that it came out. Because then you're going to talk and you're not going to get the answer, but you've already seen that it came out. So you can tell that the person's set free from that unclean spirit. Number 6, to learn how it entered. You ask, how did you enter this person? And they will tell you from sexual abuse, from fornication, from watching this, from watching that, from reading this, from performing this, from witchcraft. Their parents did witchcraft to him when he was a baby, infant, things like that a person would not know about. Since before birth, they're in the belly, because the mother did this, did that, from the idol in the house. Different reasons in the dream, there's even that. So there's different reasons, and you would not know that. So that's one reason you will ask how it entered, so you can close that curse, that door, that legal right. Number 7, to learn how he operates in the patient and what he has caused. You say, how do you operate in that body? What have you caused in this person's life? And the demon will say, I've caused destruction, affliction, ruin, divorce. I am causing him to hate everybody, to be intolerable, this and that. And he'll tell you what his mission is in that body. And you can learn from this. And that way the person and the congregation learns to fear God, knowing that this is allowed to happen. If somebody is falling in sin, somebody is disobeying, somebody has opened doors, learning these things will cause fear of God. Number 8, to learn if he still has legal right to be there. So you ask, do you have legal right to be there? And he'll tell you no. If he tells you no, then he's sealed his fate and he has to come out. If he says yes, then you ask why, and they have to answer you why they still have right to be there. Number 9, to learn if his kingdom has infiltrated and has reached more people in the patient's family. So you say, have you reached, are you also in the children? Have you reached the children? They'll say, yes, I'm in the daughter, I'm in the son. And then you tell them your plans to cut that off, to pray also with the children, and then they'll be very angry knowing that their kingdom is not reaching the children, or it's going to be also cut off from the children. And they will be very angry. That's normally their reaction, because it's true. They have also reached other people in the family. So these things are important to know, and not just to take a guess. Number 10, to weaken him if it is a total or verbal manifestation and he does not want to come out. So when there's a total or a verbal manifestation and the demon is being rebellious and not responding or not following commands, the order that has been given to come out, and it starts to speak out, then it's necessary to talk with the demon. Not necessary to have a nice conversation. This is only for the result of casting him out, and not just to learn about whatever else other than these 10 points. So you have to be very careful about getting other information other than these things that I've mentioned. Okay, be very careful. But it is important that once they are manifesting, that it's necessary to at least know this, that you can speak to them, and why it will be necessary, because they're not coming out. There's a saying that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So same thing, everybody has a plan until the demon looks at you and tells you, who are you? I don't know who you are. You don't have any power. I know Jesus. I know who Paul is, but who are you? And then you're not going to have any plans. So that's why this teaching is important, because now you do have a plan. You know that this demon is fronting you. This demon is attacking you, is counterattacking you to expose any weakness in your faith. And they will challenge you. They will challenge your power. And when I say power, they will challenge your faith, your authority. And you have to hold on to that authority. You have to stand firm. And you have to speak with authority and with faith, knowing that your words are hurting that demon, knowing that your words are going to afflict damage on that demon, because he has to come out. You're threatening his kingdom. You're threatening his house. And you have to know how to do this, not just to have fun with them, but to get them out, not to play any games. So in conclusion, I just want to say that you should never, ever be fascinated by demons, by demonology. Some people are fascinated by demonology. You don't have to be fascinated by that, because God does not want us. Just like there's some things that are true, like horoscopes and things that are true, But God prohibits his children from knowing or venturing to those routes and learning about these things. Just like demonology, we should not be diving deep into these things. We just have to know enough information to have to be girded up in faith, in power, in wisdom, and understanding, so that we are not caught off guard. But that's the only reason. You don't have to be fascinated by the depths of the kingdom of darkness. That's what the witches, warlocks, that's what they do. See, they ask for power from demons, and they get power in return for their soul, for their time, for their body, for their vessel. So we don't do these things. We have to be very careful. Demons, what are demons? They are disembodied people, disembodied hybrids that once had a body, but they no longer had a body, it's a spirit. And that spirit, all they want to do is steal, kill, and destroy. That's the entire purpose of their existence. And if you know that, then they are just limited to those three things. Ultimately, is to steal, kill, and destroy. Steal everything from you, destroy you, and to kill, to murder as much as possible. So that's their plan. We know their plan. And we have an advantage over them in Jesus Christ and the authority that God gave us. But it's important to know these things so you know what to do when the time comes. And ultimately, what do they use? What do these demons do with the body? Well, like I said, it's simple. They steal, kill, and destroy. But ultimately, they want to use bodies in order to contaminate as much people as possible, in order to cause as much stumbling to as much people as possible, especially those of the faith, especially children of God. Stumbling to them. That way, the devil has means for accusation against them, so more can enter their body, and ultimately, so they are lost forever, which is the ultimate goal. To lose, for people to apostate, to depart from the faith. That's the ultimate goal of the enemy. For his children to derail, to go off, to lose themselves, and that's really it. So we are dealing with here. We're dealing against a person, an enemy, an army, people who don't rest, don't need rest. They have more experience than us. They have more years of experience than us. But we have the authority above all. We have the authority of God himself through Jesus Christ. He is the authority. He's the head of all power, principality, all spirit. And he's given that authority to us as long as we have faith to believe in his name, and as long as we are living in holiness, living in his will, doing his will, obeying, abiding by the word of God. So, brothers and sisters, I really hope that this has been a blessing for you, your family, your congregation. I know this is controversial. I know people will get triggered by this. They will say, how is there a teaching about speaking to demons? How is this possible? Well, it's not really something that people do, but I guarantee you it's going to happen, like I said, eventually in your congregation. It's not as simple as just casting them out, telling them to come out. It's not that simple all the time. And that's why we did this teaching. All right? God bless you all.